If someone has never come across the concept of fasting before, which I think is probably quite implausible now, but can you give me the the evolutionary basis for fasting? Why does it help? And where were we told a lie? Like, where did we take a wrong turn in the last 1,000 years, which made us, I don't know, just become really gluttonous and have 5 meals a day and
Yeah.
so on?
Well, let's start with what fasting is, and then I'll dive into the lie. I have a lot of thoughts on the lie. If we go back to hunter-gatherer days, one thing that blows me away is that the human body we're living in is literally the same. It's the same as the hunter-gatherers, but what we're sitting in, what we're exposed to, the physical, emotional, chemical stressors that are handed to us every single day is completely opposite what the hunter and gatherers were doing. So if I go back to the hunter and gatherers, they came out of the cave. They didn't have DoorDash. They didn't have a refrigerator. They didn't know how to get food. They had to go find food. Now, if blood sugar is going down and they've got to go find food and they pass out, 100 yards from the cave, then we wouldn't be sitting here right now. But that didn't happen. What happened is they went out to go hunt, and the longer they were away trying to find food, the more they metabolically switched into this other fuel source called the ketogenic energy system. I like to call it the fat-burning system, because what their body did, we were like a hybrid car. The body was like, okay, blood sugar's going down. Okay, time to switch over to our other fuel source. We're going to pop in and start burning fat and make a ketone. And then that ketone went up into their brain, sharpened their focus, and made them even stronger to go find food.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we don't do that. We don't ever lean into this other system that our hunter and gatherer ancestors had to lean into. There's so much oversaturation of food and ideas and stimulation coming at us that we never had there are like biological processes in our bodies that we're not even accessing anymore, but they exist. I think you and I talked about this last time. In the book, I talk about something called the thrifty gene hypothesis. Now, it's a hypothesis. And the idea was the humans that came out of that hunter-gatherer time had a gene that allowed them to switch over into the fat-burning system and make a ketone in the absence of food. And so all of the people that survived that time period, they morphed into what we're looking at as each other right now, because the ones that didn't have that genetic profile didn't live. So they are no longer with us. So now we're sitting with this thrifty gene inside of us, eating all day. And what they believe is happening is that because we're not accessing that gene, that the people that are suffering now is on the opposite, are the ones that are not tapping in to the fat-burning system. The ones that are not accessing that are actually killing themselves because they're not in alignment with their own biology.
Kind of have a lot of empathy for them in some respects because of, it's difficult, isn't it, when we're surrounded by this much free, cheap glucose, sugar, carbohydrates to fight back against the environment you live in.
Yeah.
It's kind of what we're asking people to do. It's like fight their natural urges. Presumably the brain also has a gene which says, listen, if you see sugar, you better grab it and put it in your mouth.
Yep. And there's some microbes doing that too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. There can be fungus in your gut that tells your taste buds, hey, I need more sugar because I got to stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
Our taste buds have been completely hijacked by all the chemicals poured onto our food. So we get so much dopamine now from food that sometimes all we have to do is walk into a grocery store and look at our favorite food and see it in the aisle. We haven't even picked it up, put it in the basket. We're like, ooh, that potato chip. I love that potato chip. And that's creating a dopamine response in our brain because our brain knows when I eat that, I get dopamine.
And what is the lie then? We talked about the lie that's been told to people about the food environment, about 5 meals a day, etc. What is that lie and why were we told the lie?
The biggest lie is that all food is safe. Not all food is safe. And a part of that lie is I can walk into my grocery store and it's already been vetted for my health. Now, I can tell you in America, that's not the case. We have a category of food called GRAS, generally recognized as safe in our country. And basically what the FDA can do is the FDA can put chemicals under this category when it hasn't been scientifically proven to be safe. They can repackage them and put them in this category of generally recognized as safe. The idea is that we have a innocent until proven guilty philosophy around food. And it's even gone even further where within their own administration in the FDA, people are saying that the F is silent. They don't care about the food. And then if you go even further and you think about it, how do we have food and drug together in the same administration? If we really cared about food, we would actually pull it out separate and we would have a bigger, better analysis of food. So the lie is that all food is safe. That's not true at all. There are foods that are medicine, and there are foods that will build disease. And just because we call them both food doesn't mean they're safe. You have to know the difference.
How do we know the difference?
Well, the first thing is learn to read an ingredient label. So, do you know how to read an ingredient label?
I would say no.
So the first thing I do on anything that's packaged is I go straight to the ingredients. And this is so easy. All you've got to do is look at those ingredients and ask yourself, do I know every single one of those ingredients? And if you don't, entertain yourself and go look them up. I actually did this with my nephew years ago. He brought me some frozen waffles and he's like, hey, what do you think? Are these safe? And I said, read them out loud to me. And he started to read them out loud. He was like 14 years old at the time. He started to read, and he couldn't get through, like the third ingredient in was a chemical. And he's like, I don't know how to pronounce this. I said, go look it up. I want you to Google it and look it up and tell me what it is. And he came back and he's like, wait a second. What I just found is that's a cancer-causing chemical. I said, yeah, you're right. It is. That's what's happening, is that these chemicals are allowed in our food that promote disease. And so then once you have that idea and you know the ingredients are the most important and you follow, is it a chemical? Is it a real food? Then the next thing you can do is really stay away from anything with an ingredient label. Like when you go into a grocery store, walk around the outside. Don't go into those middle aisles. Go to the refrigerated sections. Go to the fresh food. If it doesn't have a label, it means it's authentic self. So they didn't denature it. They didn't change it. It came from the earth or it came from an animal, whatever your ethos is around there. But it wasn't put into an altered state. Because what they do is they put these things into altered states so that they taste better and they hijack your taste buds so you'll come back for more. Or they put it into an altered state so that it can last longer on the shelf. And if it lasts longer on the shelf, that chemical's lasting longer in you.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.